We've got our Morris Lubricants Racing ambassadors here. I'm joined by David Jenkins, by Lydia Walmsley and by Guy Martin. And we're going to be chatting through some of the importance of looking after your racing machinery, whether it be bikes or cars or trucks in the case of Dave. You know, you guys will all know equipment, engineering, maintenance, preparation, all of that thing that you do before you even get to a race meeting, how critical that is and how to make sure that you look after that investment, that equipment that you've got whilst you're at the race circuit. So Guy, if I start with you, why is it that changing your oil is so important when you're racing, and when you were involved in bike racing, how frequently were you doing that?
Probably even with the discipline of motorsport that I'm doing now, probably even more so than ever. I mean, because my land speed bike runs on alcohol, like E85, which is 85% ethanol, 15% unleaded. And the downside to running that is very low in calorific density. We have to run like a third more than you would do conventional fuel. But the downside to that is you get a lot of blow-by on the piston rings, which dilutes your oil. So yeah, even more so now, we have to change the oil. I try and change the oil probably every 10 miles. 10 miles of running. Change the oil, yeah. So just because it pollutes the oil and obviously knackers the sort of lubrication properties of the oil.
So if you're getting blow by on that piston ring, then you're also losing compression in reality, which is losing horsepower as well?
Well, no, because we run vented pistons, which vent the cylinder pressure to the back of the top land to squeeze the ring to the bore. But because we're running such a high volume of fuel, it was sort of down the top fuel road, but obviously not as extreme because we're not nitromethanol. So it's not the verge of hydraulicking, but there's such a volume of fuel in there that there is getting a certain percentage blow by the rings. Even though we're sealing the ring to the bore with cylinder pressure, it still blows by and dilutes the oil, which then knackers its lubricating properties.
Critical to have that service regime, critical to have the right quality and grades of oil going in.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. I mean, because we have so much horsepower in hand, we're not looking for like if you were racing naturally aspirated engines, you'd be looking at like the 0.20, 0.30 weight oil just for the maximum. So you want as little drag as possible because we want to get the maximum efficiency out of it. But with my engine, because we're running such high cylinder pressure, I suppose maybe a bit the same with your truck, Dave. The cylinder pressure. How much boost are you winding into yours?
Ooh, 4.5 bar.
4.5 bar, so like the cylinder pressure, especially with it being a diesel as well, you know, plus 4.5 bar of boost will be massive. So you're not looking for getting the friction levels of the oil down by having low viscosity. You want it to, you want the body of the oil to hold together. So you want sort of, I don't know, like what would you be like 2040, 1540?
No, that's much the same as us. We use a 1060.
Do you?
Yeah, because you're not that bothered about having the super low viscosity, because we, once again, like we explained earlier on, we're saturated with horsepower really for what we do. So it's more about having the reliability in our engines. So yeah,
1060.
Yeah, 1060. Yeah.
Right.
And once again, our oil maintenance is mainly influenced by the diesel dilution, because you're over-fueling so much that's when the problem is. If you've had a failure or anything, then obviously you've got diesel in the oil, and then the oil won't work properly.
So how frequently over a race weekend are you changing the oil?
No, every 12 hours in our engines.
Yeah. Did they do as much as that? 12 hours of running?
Yeah.
And how many meetings would that be?
3 meetings.
Oh, bloody hell, so you're doing a bit then?
Yeah.
So that's a fair chunk of oil to get through as well, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got 42 litre capacity.
Wow. 42 litres?
Yes.
Slightly more than Lydia and Guy have in theirs.
Yeah, mine's only like 3.5 litres, yeah. Yeah, but it's just interesting. It's interesting. I've had to learn that. But that general motorbike racing, like my BSA, we change that, every couple of hours of running. Which is probably like 4 meetings, Yeah.
Lydia, entirely different, I suppose. You look at what Guy's been talking about, what David's been talking about. Your Mini, entirely different regime in that respect, but still hugely important, isn't it, to change that oil and, as we say, do it on the frequency that's recommended.
Yeah, well, we change ours every race weekend, so probably maybe a little bit more than Dave, but yeah, it's super important because it's like a child, isn't it? You've got to look after it. If you don't look after something, it's not going to perform well. And when you're revving the engine to over 6,000 revs, it's not going to like it if it's not free and easy to use, is it? So it's so important. And if you want to win and you want to be at the front, you've got to make sure that your equipment is capable of doing so. And I think that's why it's so important.
You're not changing 42 litres at a time, I guess.
No, it's a little bit easier than that. Yeah, not so much.
You've been involved as brand ambassadors for differing periods of time with Morris Lubricants Racing. You know, what, Guy, have you learnt since your involvement as a brand ambassador with Morris Lubricants?
There's such a vast variety of oils. I mean, everything of mine runs on Morris, whether it's me vans, me tractors, Mrs.'s car. Yeah, I haven't found a new, she's on the CRV, like the Zero. I think you do a 020 stuff for that goes in a CRV, but we've just got an electric Honda, so I don't know where Morris will fit in there. I'm sure there'll be a way. I'm sure there'll be a way somewhere. But yeah, everything you do, like chain oils, MD4, which is like I suppose it's like I shouldn't say it's like the equivalent to WD-40, but I think it's better. I think it's better than WD-40. Yeah, everything. Yeah, such a vast variety.
And a variety that continually evolves as well as new products come online. And
yeah, I suppose as oil's got to evolve with demanding type approvals, you know, like low SAPs, like Scania, like LDF4 or whatever they're at now, and then it'll be, you know, it's always, I think the main gain from Euro 6 to wherever it goes next is going to be a reduction in CO2, so it's a reducing friction in rear axles and hubs and gearboxes, so that'll be advances in gear oils there on, and then advances for reducing frictions in engine oil. Yeah, it's just interesting. It's interesting. You know, it's not an industry that can stand still. It's got to evolve.
I want to come back to you in a little bit with another question, so I'll pose it now and get you thinking about it, because obviously with some of the land speed records, again, different requirements for things that are operating at huge amounts of either rotational G or and different lubricants are required for different things. So have a think on that, and I'll come back and ask you a few questions on it. I didn't want to put you on the spot with that one because it was a little bit off the cuff. Lydia, again, you know, you've been involved as an ambassador for Morris Lubricants Racing for a period of time now. You must have learnt lots about lubricants, the products, and their usage.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think it's been fantastic to see Morris Lubricants evolve over that time as well. I mean, I remember them bringing out the app and, you know, VR. I mean, it's brilliant. It's fantastic to watch Morris Lubricants evolve and see what new things they're bringing out. I mean, even in light of COVID crisis, they've brought out hand sanitizer and things like that. I mean, it's not just the oil side, it's everything else. And I think that's so fascinating to see how a company which, you know, is big and is producing globally, but is also so family run and invested in helping the people of the community as well. I think it's brilliant, and I've learnt so much. There's so many resources online. They obviously do the educational videos as well. I mean, it's brilliant for people buying the oil. It's important for the customers to know why it's important to have the right oil in your vehicles and why it's so important. So yeah, I think it's brilliant.
You make a really valid point there as well about, you know, the company and its history as well. You know, it's been in this building now for nearly 100 years. You know, it's fifth generation. It's still family run, and the way that the company has evolved over the years from starting in things like groceries to finding its way into, as it has done now, specialising in the lubricant side. It's quite a strong story. Yeah,
it's a brilliant story, and the fact that it's still so family orientated, I think that's brilliant, and that's at the heart of the company, and I think that's fantastic. That's what you want, really, isn't it? You want to go in and have a family atmosphere. I mean, when you come down the street and you see the iconic clock tower, I mean, I just think it's brilliant, and it's so oldie worldy, and you walk through the factory and it's fantastic, and everyone loves it. Well, it seems like everyone loves working here, and I think it seems to be a fantastic company to work for as well. So it's not just the things they produce, but it's the whole environment. I just think it's brilliant.
Dave, you've been a long-time ambassador for Morris Lubricants Racing, and whilst you've got huge amounts of knowledge that you can draw from, you must have learnt lots too.
Yeah, I work in the industry, and you know, one big thing is oil application all the time. So Morris has made it easy to understand what oils you should be putting in what vehicles, and a few years ago with the launch of the Versimax range of products, that's made it simple to understand you know, which version of the oil needs to go in the latest spec truck engines. So Morris's are a traditional company, but with a increasingly more modern outlook at solving day-to-day problems in the workshop. So, which is much the same as what Guy and Lydia have said. So, I do find them easy. The product range is easy to work with in the workshop environment, which is where I earn my living ultimately.
So some of that sort of knowledge and understanding from the application to your racing finds its way back into your business as well, where you're buying product for customers' vehicles.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. The knowledge that we gain along the way, and the product endorsement as well. You know, many years ago we used to build our own engines all the time, like Guy is doing now, and we used to really suffer with the diesel dilution. And a long time before I was sponsored by Morris Lubricants, I used to buy the Morris Lubricants product because it was the only thing that we could keep turbos alive with in our engines, because when they used to overfuel, the oil had become contaminated with diesel, and the first thing to fail was the turbo, and it's probably the one most expensive single component on the engine. And you know, the Morris Lubricants used to make a product back then that we used that saved our engine, saved our turbos, and that was why I initially developed a relationship with them. And in motorsport, you know, it's all about reliability, isn't it? As Lydia's just explained, we've got these things that we're absolutely caning to death on a daily basis, and then you've got to go home and try and make friends with them and look after them on a night, Sam, isn't it? And you know, the reliability is the key thing, and it's always been said, hasn't it? You know, to finish first you must finish.
Absolutely.
So breakdowns are no good to any of us, are they?
No, consistency and reliability is what wins championships, as all of you know. So before I come back down the line this way, back through Lydia and Guy, why is it for people that are watching here that are having a look at you guys as motorsport ambassadors, but those people that are also just looking in at Morris Lubricants Racing, why is it important for those people to choose a fit-for-purpose lubricant for their vehicle, Dave?
Evolution, isn't it? Engines aren't like they used to be anymore. You can't just you can't just have a drum of 1040 in the corner of your garage and keep sticking it in everything, can you? And Morris's have got a product for every application. Why is it important? Well, it is important, isn't it? We've got to, with the emission standards that we have to achieve these days, and all the other technical aspects. And that's why you've got to put the right oil in the right vehicle.
Lydia, same for you as well. You know, you're racing the car around the track, but you've got your own car that you drive on the road, and the family's cars as well. Important to get the right product for the right application.
Well, it's absolutely essential. You know, we're all trying to get the most out. Well, when you're racing, you're trying to get the most out of your vehicle, but when you're on the road, you want to make it as economical as possible, as environmentally friendly as possible, and if you've not got the right oil in your vehicle, you're not going to achieve that. And I think it's just so important. I mean, when you're racing, you want to be at the front, and if your engine's not free and lubricated, it's not going to work right, is it? So yeah, really important.
Guy, you'll know from your background, you started as a mechanic when you were in your teens, 16 years of age. So you've been around the industry for a huge amount of years. You know why it's so important. Preventative maintenance, isn't it? To make sure that you've got that fit-for-purpose oil, that's the correct oil for your vehicle. You know, what you'll put in your motorbike will be different to what you put in your Volvo 850.
Yeah. I suppose it's never been more apparent than it is today. I mean, when you look, when you've started racing trucks, how big were the engines? You know, would they be like 16 litres? Would they be massive?
14 litres, yeah.
14 litres, yeah. And I look now, everything, it's never been as more important, because things have never been under more stress than they are today, because to get the efficiency, it's no good having massive engines. You're better off having a smaller engine, blowing it to death, right? Like having whether it's a supercharger or a turbocharger, loading it up to get the efficiency out of it. And now, but obviously by doing that, you're stressing the oil more. So yeah, the oil's never been under more stress than it is in today's engine.
With some of the record attempts that you've done, you know, they are operating in an entirely different environment to a normal road vehicle or even normal motorsport. So when it comes to some of the things that you've driven in the past, whether it be the Ford Transit that you broke the record in around the Nürburgring, whether it be the Merlin engine that you've got sitting somewhere up in Lincolnshire, you know,
took down the stairs,
and some of the things that are enormously stressed, things like wheel bearings when you're travelling at a certain speed, the rotational G on those all needs different lubricants, different greases, and all of those sorts of things, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Nothing probably more so than the engines, because of the amount of cylinder pressure we're looking at, and that just passes the stress down to the crankshaft, the shell bearings and everything. So you just want to keep the oil to keep its integrity, really, just so it does the job of saving metal contact. Really, that's the whole. Yeah, that's the whole idea.
Isn't it? Oil is an investment because
Absolutely.
you buy the right oil.
Hey, boy, penny wise, pound foolish. I say it with everything, don't we? Say it with everything. In a situation like that, penny wise, pound foolish.
All about preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
So that's all for the moment from our ambassadors at Morris Lubricants Racing. But keep your eye on the website and social media because there's more videos coming up.